Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome in to another production of the Cross-Platform Baseball League. My name is Weaver for Prez, and as always, I am joined by one of the great co-commissioners of this league, Dwayne. How you doing tonight, Dwayne?
Weaver, I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready to get into some nitty-gritty stuff. We got a few extra segments on our hands for you tonight, and we are very excited to show them to you.
Yep, and this is our roundup here at the Cross-Platform Baseball League. This is going to cover week 6, correct?
Yes, week 6.
Yeah, week 6. So everything that went up to the end of the match of the week sets that we had last Sunday night, which both of them were pretty good. So we'll get into that. We'll see if those had any effect on the power rankings or the highlight reel. So without any further ado, let's start out with the AAA power rankings after 6 weeks of play. And starting out here on the bottom chunk here, we got Captain Krill, Half Onion, Lanky Kale, 2-spot improvement from Casino, and then the Lone Stars at 14.
Yep, a little bit of shaking up here. Last week, everyone stayed where they already were, and then got a artificial one-man bump due to Timbo. This week, a little bit more shaking up, like you said. Casino is starting to get some offense going. I believe he switched to a monitor. That always helps. Things like that. Kale, I believe, this week or last, also splitting with Mondu, so kind of hanging tight there at 16, and towards the bottom half Onion and Krill, per usual.
Yep, and then moving on up as we get up here to 13 through 10 here. Swayze Dogs, the Knights, the Anchors, and the Maidens here with no name there at 10. All few promotions here.
Yeah, a few promotions indeed. We saw a really, really good showing from Phillies on Match of the Week Sunday, even though he did lose that game. He has been on a really, really, or those games, he's been on a really hot streak. I think going into that, he was 7-1, so 7-3 in his last 10 or something like that. Considering he has 9 whole wins, that'll definitely earn you some love in the power rankings. Swayze Dogs lagging behind due to lack of games. They're going to be dropping 3, and Canada and Anchors both getting that 1-man bump, or that 1-point bump, because of the movement down from Swayze Dogs mostly. And Canada also really locking it down here in the latter half of the season.
Yeah, Phillies Rock really putting on a show. I said it myself a couple times. I think Phillies Rock is a huge candidate to pull off an upset in the first round of the playoffs.
100%.
Based on what we saw in that match of the week, he looked a lot better than his record.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so moving up here, this is where we don't have a lot of change. Mondu, Wishbone, Rainey, and Phil here. No movement.
Yeah, still getting a lot of love is Phil, Rainey, Wishbone, and Mondu especially. That means, they've been pretty solid among the consensus here. Rainey's pitching, doing him well throughout. He's finished up at 20-14 here. NASA still 2 games to play. Could take that 7 spot or even the 6 spot from Phil, depending on how things go going this week. So that could have an effect on the final season rankings and the final season playoff picture. Mondu dropping a few recently, able to just stick around at 9. He's been splitting, here and there, showing he can really score, and then sometimes he gets shut down.
Yep, and then moving on up towards those top 5 above the dual monsters here. A little bit more movement here. We've got the Prowlers staying where they are, and then a flip between Mers Drone at 3 and Pizza Volcano at 4, and then B Hagen staying at 2.
Yeah, I believe a bit of a rougher run for Pizza Volcano, causing that flip with Mers for 3-4. Mers, on the other hand, winning most of his recent games. I'm not sure his exact clip, but Pizza having some hardware issues, playing into a little bit of things apparently. And either way, just the offensive production hasn't been there. A few splits going against Pizza's favor.
And then, no surprise, not a whole lot to talk about here. The great Jam Paladin at rank 1 continues to dominate the league. It's going to be exciting to watch this talent in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Still at 28-2, looking strong with a few more games to finish up.
All right, those are the AAA rankings after 6 weeks of play, and we're moving right on to the XBL rankings. No movement at the very bottom here. Hummus at 18, and the Colts at 17. They got swept by Finite, as you can see. They got swept by Finite just before the match of the week sets on Sunday. That plus the solid pitching performance on the Sunday night match of the week is why Finite has moved up a spot, I would say.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then the -1 for Cardiac, he did have that heartbreaking sweep at the hands of Doso.
Yeah, tough day. Cardiac playing back-to-back sets where he loses all 4 games, I believe, to Mantis and Doso. So yeah, he gets that unfortunate 1-man bump. He's finished up there at 8-26, and Finite getting some love because he really locked it down on Match of the Week, and he finished strong, finishing with a sweep against Boops and then getting swept by Light Snack. But yeah, finishing really, really strong.
Right,
he had a
I'm
sorry, I was going to say he had an inordinate amount of games, 1-run games go against his favor this season, and that will definitely play into that 9-25 record.
Yeah, one-run games are always a doozy. All right, moving up above Finite, 1 spot demotion for Alec, who unfortunately for the greats, for the Hall of Famer Alec AD, he has been removed from playoff contention, which means the rest of the names on this little chunk here are all competing for those bottom 2 spots. Doso, yourself, and BK.
Yeah, and if any team in 12 and 13 among the 3 mentioned, myself, the Base Evaders, and the Firebirds, end up with a tied record at 12 and 13, that will require a 1-game playoff regardless of head-to-head and run differential. So Watch out for teams ending on 1 record. Watch out for these last few sets. Doso with 4 to play. I've got 2 to play. BK with 2 to play. So very, very interesting shakeup could happen in the 12, 11, 13 range, depending on how things go.
That is going to get interesting. And moving on up above the base invaders here into the top 10, a promotion for Pseudo, who leapfrogs BK. No movement for the 51ers, no movement for the Jabronis, and unfortunately for myself, a demotion, but that's okay. But yeah, the solid 7 through 10 here.
Yeah, absolutely. Pseudo getting some love. He, I believe, swept Boops this week, moving up above 500, ending the week above 500 for one of the first times this season. He's going to play Mike this week, looking to finish up strong, perhaps end up finishing above instead of at 500. So he's looking good. He's getting ready for the playoffs. And then we've got, like you said, Chris at 17 and 17, a solid consensus number 9, halfway down the league at 500. He had a really, really strong showing in the first half of the season. Not as strong in the second half, still lockdown pitching and a decent offense, so that could definitely get him far in the playoffs at the current, I believe, 10th seed. The Jabronis, I believe he won. Did he win back-to-back series this week?
Jabronis, ooh. After he beat, I think he only played one set this week.
He split with you for match of the week last week.
He split with Alec.
And then, split with Alec, and then a sweep over Cardiac. So not really anything to push him much higher than 8 at this time. And you with the one spot demotion, probably due to the rising here of Ted and the push down of Government. You and Government both losing games to me at number 12 this week, going into play a little bit there.
Right, yeah, and just the sheer on fireness, I guess you could say, of Ted. Ted looking like a very strong contender right now with his recent performances, especially. I know it wasn't this week, or no, it was 2 weeks ago where he beat Ashnod. But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's just been very impressive recently for Ted, and that's why he lands at 5.
Yeah, I mean, what I was gonna say is rally man rallies, and it's been a theme in every Ted game since really that late inning onslaught. In the extra innings, he put on Ashnod. I believe he scored 9 runs in the 13th inning or something like that. And ever since then, he's lived and died by the big inning, and he's had a lot of them going in his favor. So going into playoffs, Ted is looking extremely, extremely dangerous. Cooch Potato is a little bit light on the offensive showing recently, getting that pushed down due to some rising.
Big rise. Yeah, big rise here from the Birdies. Light Snack has been putting on show after show. He did. His offensive performance was a little bit, I guess, neutered by Finite in the match of the week, but I mean, he still pulled out the sweep. He overcame that great pitching from Finite. But other than that, it's been a bit of a dream season for the Birdies. They've just been excellent.
Absolutely. Ever since not as favorable of a power ranking early in the season, came out completely swinging, showed very early that he was at the very least a top 5 hitter, now showing that he's very well considered the number 2 consensus power rank at this time across the league. The Birdies have been absolutely mashing the ball, pushing them above Ashnod just because of sheer consistency and the amount that he's been able to also do a really, really fine job pitching as well as hitting. And at number 1, always consensus lazy, currently sitting at a very pretty 28-2.
Yeah, the Jackal's just a bit too elite. It would have been. I think there would have been some heart attacks in chat if the Jackals had gone anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so we're doing something a little different this week. We've got a couple extra things we want to go over, and the first of which, we're going to just take a look at the playoff picture as it stands right now. So again, these things. Remember, there's a whole week of games to be played. So these positionings, these positions in the brackets are subject to change. Many of them probably will. Many of them probably won't. So we'll just kind of go through them and just point out things that we think are interesting, things that would be exciting. So here on this top half of the AAA bracket, you can see Jam Paladin with the double bye there. Mondiu, this is what's interesting. Mondiu and Lanky Kale would match up. They actually just played this week, and it was a split. Lanky Kale got a win off of Mondiu.
Yeah, it just goes to show, even down in AAA, there's still a strong amount of parity among the ranks, and in a best of 3, things can really go one way or another for teams. So Kale showing some ability to lock it down, score a couple runs, and to hold Mondiu this week could do him a lot of favors. Also to bring to attention, Rainey who, if
Hmm.
he gets through Krill and through that next round, would end up facing Jam Paladin. Jam Paladin's one of two losses have come against Rainey this season. So looking down the road, if things end up where they are right now, that's another hot matchup to watch out for.
Yeah, could be interesting for sure. Let's move on down to the next little quadrant here. This is the part of the bracket where Pizza Volcano gets the double bye. And then you can see the 5 seed Corruptions with the single bye, Lone Stars and Anchors. That would be a good, a well pitched series, I would have to think.
Absolutely. The Lone Stars with very, very, very low batting average against, at least in the beginning half of the season. A little bit tough on the offensive output lately, but kind of same goes for Job. We could see a very, very competitive series at 12 and 13 with them, especially in a best of three, like we were saying. The privilege of which winning that gets to play the Prowlers, who have been looking hot lately.
Yep, absolutely. And then, yeah, the Prowlers, we'll talk about it here in a few minutes, but the batting has just been excellent. We'll move on down the list, though. Phil with the single bye. This is the part where Mers would get a double bye. And so okay, so the winner of Canada versus the Knights would play the dual monsters, right?
Yes, correct. And then the winner of
Okay,
that
so,
game
yeah.
plays the Salt Lake Summits.
So this is what I mentioned earlier with the AAA power rankings. Phillies Rock at 14 is a deceptive low seed, just based on what I was seeing from his plate approach and all that. That would be a very interesting possible upset there.
Yeah, absolutely. Philly's showing that he's turning up his offense later in this season. As we stated earlier today, on the public streams, he's an XBL veteran in his own right. He's been taking part in 2 of the last 3 seasons now. This would be his third season that he's taken part in. He's no slouch by any means, and he will definitely sneak up on you come playoff time. He knows what the tournament's all about.
Yeah, no doubt some burners here in this bracket. We'll go to the next one. Wishbone versus the Onions, the Swayze Dogs versus the Resistance, and all of that leading into a date with the Megafauna, who are the likely number 2 seed in AAA. I would say probably the most interesting match here would be Swayze Dogs and the Resistance, who Resistance have been on the upswing lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And these two know each other well, having taken part in the XBL since season 3. So a big pair of veterans in Blazer and Casino at 10 and 15. That matchup could be really spicy. Definitely really, really interesting. In
Yeah.
also, no, you look at NASA, who put on a really great offensive showing. Wishbone had a really great match of the week with the sweep over Phillies, who's been as hot as anybody right now. And he could match up very well against the Megafauna
Right,
if he
right.
ends up getting through those rounds. So we'll see how that ends up playing out over the next week.
Yeah, and then I believe that's it for
Yeah,
the
that'll go.
bracket, right? Okay, so now we will move on and do the same for the XBL. Remember, here there's only 12 teams because not everyone makes it in XBL. You got to be in the top 12. So at 8 and 9 would be the Fuegos and the Dragoons, but I believe it's actually Dragoons at 8, right? It just hasn't updated.
Yeah, just we were running games into the archive right up until match of the week or weekly roundup here. So Ted at 8 at 18 and 14, Pseudo at 17 and 15 at 9. Either way, 8's gonna play 9 in a best of 5 series to
Right.
start off round 1. Very, very competitive. I believe Pseudo might have got the sweep on Ted earlier in the season, so he has that going for him. But Ted is hot as anybody, like we said right now. It's a very, very deceptive number 9 seed.
Yeah, this would be a crazy matchup. Just both teams, in my mind, are very strong at the whole quick strike rally thing. We've said that already about Ted with his contact approach, but Suda can do it too, especially if he gets into that hit and run groove. Unfortunately for both these guys, they would have to play Lazy and the Black Jackals in the quarterfinals. But I mean, I think either of them could pull off that upset if it came down to it. What do you
In a
think?
best of 5 series, yeah, you never really know what could happen. Lazy has shown a couple times this season that he can be held, and it's, Pseudo's been known to step up under the bright lights, and Ted's always done a great job of doing his homework and really studying his opponent and pitching really well. So that could really come into play in a best of 5.
Yeah, I think just using my memory here, I think Ted did get swept by Lazy, but in one of them he held Lazy to 3 runs. So there is potential for Ted's unorthodox pitching. I mean, this is assuming this is in a hypothetical where he beats Pseudo. There's obviously no guarantee. Both players are excellent, but that low velo approach that Ted uses And you never know. It could give Lazy a fit, as it did when he held him to 3 runs. So that would be
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah. All right. And then the next part of the bracket here. Oh boy,
Oh
the
boy, is
caster
right.
showdown. Oh man, the caster showdown for the right to play on the stream god. What do you think?
I think it's funky looking right now. There's a higher chance that I hold on to this 12 seed, but still a big chance that Doso could be taking my place or BK could end up in this spot. So as of right now, I'm sitting at 12, and as of right now, we have a 5v12 matchup. You and I recently just played last week. We split. We scored 4 total runs across 2 games.
Yeah.
Put us in a best of 5. I think it's like putting 2 cats in a box and letting them duke it out. It's gonna be pretty interesting, and runs are going to be hard to come by. And like you said, the privilege to play Mike is on the line. Someone who played you very hard for, I believe, your opening series or one of your opening
Opening
series.
week, but
Opening
not
week,
yeah.
yeah.
Opening week.
He
Yeah.
played you very hard. You had a tough sweep from Mike, and me on the other hand had a harder time with him. So would really have to either both of us would really have to lock it down going like up against number 4.
Yeah, and this is a matchup that could very well change. I could easily fall to 6 or 7, and as you said, you're still fighting for that 12th seed. So we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, that would be a fun one, and this would be a fun one as well. The Zimbabwe government versus the Base Invaders for the right to play the Beaky Bay Birdies.
Definitely a very interesting matchup considering the Base Invaders and Zimbabwe's final 2 games. Or no, government has Doso as well, but the Base Invaders and government still have to play.
That's right. Yeah, they haven't
So
played yet.
they will be very familiar with each other if 6 and 11 end up being where they land. That could come into play in that best of 5. BK looking a lot better lately, scoring a lot more runs than his season average has been showing. So
Yeah,
going up against government later in the season might be favorable for him. And like
and
you
then I
said,
want to
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Speak
I
on.
want to say government and the Birdies split.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and then BK just played the Birdies. Maybe it was this week. And the first game, I watched it myself. The first game was very close, so there's definitely potential for an interesting 11 versus 3 there.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly no open and shut case going into it.
No, absolutely not. You never really know what's going to happen in these tournaments. There's been upsets before, and they could very well happen again this season. Light Snack, though, as hot as anybody going to the playoffs, he's going to be really hard to topple for either team if they look to get through.
Yeah, true. Red hot are the Birdies. And then we'll go down to the final little matchup here. The Junkyard Jabronis and the Area 51ers for the right to play Ashnod and the Blues. What do you think about this one?
I think both of these teams pitch at an extremely high level, so it's going to be a really gritty series between them both for the privilege to play Ash. If the Jabronis get through to play Ash, they've got Shaka on their side. He already split with Ash this season. Chris having a harder time with him, but you know that he's got a very, very interesting pitching approach that he could possibly figure some things out. I think both of those teams could match up well with the number 2, but they're going to have to get through each other first, and that 5-game series I think could go all the way.
Yeah, true. Neither the Jabronis nor the 51ers would be an easy, quote unquote, easy matchup for the Blues, who are they've been dominant this year. But like you said, the Jabronis are one of the teams that has beaten Ashnod,
Mm-hmm.
and it was at Shaka. So anything can happen if you get a couple games there in a 5-game series.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that's our little playoff preview, and another new segment now. We're going to talk. This one may be a little bit shorter. We're going to look at the awards race for both leagues. So, if you don't know, there's a handful of awards that are handed out to the leagues, and right now we're going to talk about the 2 most prominent ones. Those being the Long Ballo Award, which is handed out to the best hitter, and the Von Acesen Award, which is handed out to the best pitcher. So we'll do that. We'll start with the Long Ballo, and we'll start with AAA. Just looking here. It's looking like a race between the Surfers, the Megafauna, the Prowlers, and the Moon Kingdom.
Yeah, all 4 of these teams hitting in an extremely impressive clip, almost 80 points above the next best team in the Duel Monsters and the Summits, as you can see. All 3 of these teams with 60 or close to 60 homers. And then you have the Prowlers, who are purely a contact swinging team, hanging up there at 373 with 364 hits, tons of runs batted in. low amount of strikeouts, high amount of walks, perhaps the highest amount of walks in the league the Prowlers have.
Yeah.
So it is not an open and shut case here for the long ballo in AAA. The Surfers have a really good look right now, but the Megafauna, the Prowlers, and the Moon Kingdom are not far behind at all.
Yeah, no doubt. And the at bats also a little different. So there's still plenty of time for the stats to change. Of course, we're just speculating just for fun. But yeah, a good race there. And we'll look now at the contenders for the AAA Von Acesen Award. This one probably a little tighter. So just looking at opponents' batting average, there's two teams that are standing out above the rest. That's Merzdrone and Rainey. If you just look at opposing batting average, strikeouts as well, that's Rainey by a long shot. And then if you want to look at walks, you get Mers.
Right. Both of these guys have a very, very, very pitching first mindset, in my opinion. Rainey with an extremely high number of strikeouts, 95 more recorded strikeouts than Mers. I think he also employs a lot more strategic walks than a lot of players would. So at a 221, 240 strikeouts, 31 walks, he's looking really, really good for the race. And Mers just shutting it down, 4 points lower on the batting average spectrum. Less hits allowed, home runs also less allowed, just not as many strikeouts. But less walks, he's attacking the zone, and he's having a lot of success.
Yeah, crazy stats there for the Summits. Probably the early favorite, but again, games to be played, and it's still close with the other guys, so we'll see how that shakes out. And now we'll move on to the XBL version of these awards, starting with the Long Ballo Watch. And there's some solid teams on here, but for me, it's probably a two-way race between the Black Jackals, who have a huge lead on batting average. But then you contrast that with the Blues, who are only 2 home runs away with 4 games to play from the single-season home run record.
Yeah, that's extremely impressive. Ashnod hitting home runs at a very, very high clip, especially in this pitching-dominated season. To see him at 109 home runs is absolutely insane. Lazy far behind at 74. He is really can't really. He's what is that? 35 home runs behind Ash. So he's just almost lapping the field in a lot of cases with the sheer amount of home runs he's hitting. But Lazy batting 451 with about around 50 more hits than Ashnod. They've both played the same amount of games. Lazy with a higher number of walks, less number of strikeouts, but the sheer power by the Blues, and then the Birdies not far behind with 45 home runs, a very, very high number of walks, and a very high batting average. It's not an open and shut case again like the AAA. There's still some factors to take into account.
Yeah.
And anyone hitting 390 is worth consideration in my opinion.
Also, just want to point out the impressive 309 batting average and even the impressive 288 from Ted, 2 contact-only swingers there. So
yeah, yes.
Props to them for hanging in this race. Obviously, they're probably not going to win it, but always good to at least come close like that.
Absolutely.
And then we'll take a look here at the running for the Von Acesen. This one might be the closest of the ones that we've looked at. Just looking at opponents' batting average, the Jabronis, the clear winner here. Granted, they do have, I believe, the most games to be played out of anyone in the XBL.
Yes.
So lots of time for that to change. Low strikeout rate. Him and Ted both pitching to contact. If you go below them, you get the Beavers, Colts, and the Republic, who have much higher strikeout numbers. So yeah, a lot of competition there.
Yeah, I would say so. There's definitely a lot of competition here. Mantis with a very, very large lead on batting average against, but home runs allowed by Ted, minuscule, and with his low velo pitching staff, that's a very impressive feat considering it's gone against the meta this season. So you would expect him to be on the lower end of strikeouts. All 3 of the teams at the top mitigating walks pretty well. Boops with a very high number of strikeouts. That's just impressive in its own right, considering where his team has finished this season. Most of his outs probably coming from strikeouts. But either way, I think the 3-man race currently that we have for the Von Acesen in the XBL is very, very tight and won't be decided until all these games are finished.
Yeah, should be a tight race. I'm excited to see where that goes. And so yeah, that's going to be the end of our little awards watch. We'll do another one, I think, probably next week, depending on when the voting gets done. We may just do an entirely separate show for awards. So
yeah, I would say
keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for that. We'll make some decisions this week. But yeah, now on to the last segment, which is, of course, going to be plays of the week, top 5 as ranked by myself and ranked by Dwayne. consensus ranking.
Alrighty.
This is from both leagues, AAA and XBL. And coming in at number 5, a play from Corruptions. A little spoiler there, but that's fine. Play from Corruptions versus B. Hagen. Huge seeding matchup here. Game on the line, tying run, rounding second as the play is made. Corruptions makes a nice sliding catch.
Yeah, really, really impressive, and just shut the door on a game with runner in scoring position. An extremely hard hit ball by B. Hagen, who is a known, dangerous hitter in this league. Just a great play to seal the deal. He was desperate to catch that, and Lil Strong Legs did his thing.
Yeah, clutch catch there to probably if he bobbles it, at least one run scores, and then the 3-hole hitter is up next, so you really never know.
Yeah,
We
a two-run
really
ball
never know
game.
what
If that
happens.
finds a gap, it's tied. So.
Yeah, that secures the split for Corruptions versus the second or third best team, depending on who you ask. Maybe even first best. We'll see. All right, moving on to number 4. This is from you, Dwayne, versus Government in a game that you split, holding him off the board with a 90 throw to gun him at the plate on a potential sac fly.
Yeah, I mean, this one pumped me up to say the least. It was a very, very tough matchup. Government, an extremely good contact hitter, and I needed to walk away with a split here, having to shut the door and stay in the playoff race, and Anita did a great job there. I mean, I can't really be more pleased with a 90 throw. He had a slower runner coming to the plate, but everything was in that throw, and I just had my breath held the entire time.
Yep, and you were hyped. If we could hear the audio, we would all know you were hyped on that play.
Absolutely.
Very well deserved number 4 spot. And then number 3 is actually a play from our most recent match of the week, Finite versus Snack. This was a play that ended up, you could say, winning Snack the game. He won the game 1-0. Finite was on the absolute verge of taking a 1-0 lead here fairly late in the game.
Yeah, and then the insane diving catch and the double play gets him by a beat. That was game saving, like you're saying. It was a 1-run game at the end, and that could have been huge, huge, huge for Finite. Could have been a confidence breaker for the Birdies. It ends up being a confidence booster. The play by Chicken Dinner coming in at number 3. That's a hot one.
Yeah, clutch play by Chicken Dinner. Good fielding stat, pays off. It would, yeah, like you said, it would have been absolutely heartbreaking if he had just booted it into center field. The run scores, and then you never know if Snack ties it later on because it doesn't always play out like a perfect domino effect. But yeah, definitely a momentum switcher here. We'll watch it one more time.
Looks like she slides on ice.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that when we were calling it. All right, number 2 spot is a play that unfortunately was against me earlier in week 6 versus Alec AD. A 0-0 game. Mr. Chongle at the plate, robbed by Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, it's funky. One of those plays that I guess really only happens because he's got his glove on his right hand too. He's able to jump up there, make that play, and whip it over to first base to get you for the out. In a game that eventually ended, I believe, in your favor 1-0 in the 9th inning, though, this was huge for Alec to make this play and possibly keep his playoff hopes alive at that time.
You know what I realized too? If that rip gets over Hendrix's head and I score 1, maybe 2, I go into that bottom of the 9th still with the no hitter. Which when I played the game, I had the 9 no-hit innings, but I couldn't get the no-hitter because the game didn't end until like the 14th.
Yeah,
so,
that
crazy
is what it
play
is
there.
sometimes. You had a great performance in that one, and yeah, Alec doing himself a favor to keep himself alive, give himself a chance in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the number 1 play of week 6 is not a defensive play. It is an offensive play. This is Doso versus Cardiac. We come in mid-clip there. That's fine. We'll get enough replays on it. Down to his final out, his final strike, playoff hopes. I don't think he would have been directly eliminated if he had lost, but it would have been terrible to lose because he needs to rack up those wins. Hits the homer just out of Emerald Diamond to take the lead, and he would end up closing it out.
Yeah, to say the least that he needed it's an understatement. Doso, to stay in this playoff race, to get a huge sweep over Cardiac, he needed to win this game. And taking his final strike against one of the more proficient pitchers in XBL history over the fence in a season in which Doso himself has only 3 other home runs other than this.
That's right. Yeah, that was his 4th homer of the season, and it was perfectly timed. I mean, that's just as clutch as it gets.
Absolutely. Doso, one more time, just taking it deep, and it knocks the absolute wind out of the sails of the Cardinals. They could not come back in that 9th inning.
Crazy. Doso with the top play of week 6. We'll see what week 7 brings us. That's going to do it for us here. We hope you enjoyed this extended XBL roundup. We enjoyed putting it together for y'all. And yeah, we'll see you guys next weekend for some matchup of the weeks. Matchups to be announced. You'll see those in the Discord. We'll have them here on the channel for you, and then we'll have maybe like I don't want to speculate, but maybe like instead of a week 7 roundup, we'll look back at the season a little bit next week.
Mm.
We'll spend some time doing that. So yeah, anything you want to add as you sign us out, Dwayne?
Nope, just the same old stuff. You know, you guys are ready for the playoffs. Things are coming down to the wire. So finish up your games, track down the guys you got to play. You know, pinging the channel for the group at large. Not really the move right now. You want to seek out people via DM. Get your minimums, get everything done because we want a clean finish to the season. We don't want to have to hand out any forfeiting or things like that. But yeah, otherwise, get hyped. This is seriously probably the most exciting playoff race in XBL history. It started, a couple weeks ago, and it's going to end this week. So get ready for it and get ready for the playoff tournament because there's going to be a lot of exciting baseball to play.
Oh yeah, and just in the event that it happens, keep an eye out for a potential tiebreaker game for that 12 spot. If it
Mm-hmm.
happens, I would say we're probably all but guaranteed to get that casted for
Yeah,
you
we will get
for
that
everyone.
casted on this channel if there is any event of a one-game playoff for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So if that happens, keep your eyes out. But in any case, have a great night, everyone. Have a great week. Have a great final week, and we'll see you Sunday night. Later, everyone.
We were in Dwayne out.